Okay, this is either going to be really good or really bad. I've waited for a little bit for the season to finish before I make this video because I wanted all of the season to fully wrap up, the Champions League included, before I make this video. This is going to be one of the longest effort videos that I've made in terms of, research and editing and all that stuff. So before anything, if you could subscribe and like, that would be very much appreciated. I'm not going to dilly-dally around too much. I'm just going to get really straight into this and hope that this works out. These are my SPFL ratings. Oh god. I'm going to start from the bottom and work our way up. So starting at 12th place is Dundee United. Yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised at that too, I'll be real. Dundee at the start of the season were predicted to finish in 5th place. Now 5th place is pretty respectable top half finish, and with the squad that they have, they really could have done a lot of damage. They're good players coming into the season, and players like Glenn Middleton and Jamie McGrath, and they could have really done a lot more with it, but unfortunately for them, it didn't quite work out. To put things into context, Dundee United were in Europe in August. They were in the playoff round against Alkmaar, and to be fair to them, they actually did pretty good. They got a 1-0 win in the first leg. Like I said, Glenn Middleton came into clutch, managed to get them a pretty respectable win at Tannadice, and they realistically could have actually done something, but unfortunately, that didn't quite happen. They lost 7-0. They lost 7-0 to Alkmaar in the away fixture. Now, no one was expecting them to win, but for them to get destroyed was pretty humiliating. On to the league though. 31 points, and if you're breaking that down in wins, draws and losses, it's 8 wins, 7 draws and 23 losses. Now it's not to say that they didn't have good games or good moments and things like that, because it would be a disrespect to Dundee. They did have moments, and I'll get to that later, but to put it into context, here's how they kind of set up. They played with this exceptionally weird 3-4-2-1 formation, I guess you could call it, from what I've seen looking at the lineups and things like that, but from my honest perspective, it never really worked. Their intentions were to play into the midfield space, and more often than not, they would get overrun on the wings, and crosses would be basically the end of them. They conceded a lot of goals. In fact, to put it into context how bad that is, they only managed to not concede in 4 games the entire season. 34 for 38. They've gone multiple spells in this season where they've failed to get any points at all, winless runs that have gone on for 4, 5, 6 games, and it just never really kind of came into clutch for them until basically the latter stages of the season, and even by then they just didn't really piece together the things that they needed to piece together to make a successful, relegation safety play, I suppose. And what I mean by coming good in the middle of the season is that they played slightly better. They did not play good. They brought in Jim Goodwin, I'll get onto him later. But yeah, it didn't work. Down they went. Bye-bye Dundee United. Some of their key wins include a 4-0 win against Aberdeen, 1-0 win against Hibs, a pretty scrappy win against Hibs, but a pretty good win against Hibs. In fact, these 2 wins came pretty close together on back-to-back match days. Match day 9 and 10, that was the only time they won back-to-back games during the season. And then another notable result is a 3-0 win against Ross County on match day 19. That's it. Now on to the first team that was actually considered a relegation contender, and that's Ross County. They were not particularly amazing. 9 wins, 7 draws and 22 losses. That's basically what kept Ross County alive. Now, I wouldn't really call their season terrifically good or bad. They were kind of expected to be there. The predicted, analysis placed them in 10th. They finished 11th. They had what you would consider a below average season. They kind of play the most Scottish style of football probably in the league. They play with a 3-5-2, and it actually works quite well when it works. They've had good results. Like I've said, they've had occasional glimpses, they've had good draws, and occasionally have deserved more than that in certain aspects of the season. As I'm talking over this bit, I'll put up some of the results from their match days over the course of, this little segment. They had a lot of draws, like I said, 7 draws. Most of them were good. Like I said, a couple of unlucky losses and a couple of hammerings in between. Basically, what you would expect from a relegation team. They did have good wins on match day 15, for instance, against Hibernian. They managed to win 2-0. I think that was away from home. Then on match day 27, the game that arguably kept them alive was the 4-0 absolute decimation, and I do mean decimation, of Dundee United, and that was, again, probably what kept them alive. There isn't really too much to add to Ross County, but the fact that their playoffs were probably better than their actual season. They were 3-0 down to Partick Thistle, which, if you don't know, if you finish 11th, you don't get relegated. You go into what's called a relegation playoff against the promotion playoff side that does well in the Scottish Second Division. In this case, it was Partick Thistle against Ross County. Ross County went 2-0 down in the first leg after a red card in the 17th minute. Didn't really do themselves a lot of, justice, but they managed to pull off an incredible comeback. They were 3-0 down, like I said, in the 70th minute, but they scored 3 times, including a 91st minute equalising, aggregate goal from George Hannon, and it kept them basically afloat. They managed to hold out over extra time, go to penalties, and they won 5-4.
I'm not leaving.
Respect to the goalkeeper, respect to their entire team. Well done for staying up, Ross County. A lot of people might not like you, but I have respect. You're the only Highland club that actually plays okay. Ross County, D-. First team in the league this season to break the 10-win barrier was Kilmarnock. They've wrapped up 10th place, and comfortably so, with 40 points, and that included 11 wins, 7 draws and 20 losses. There's a theme with the 7 draws, you'll see. They actually played okay. I mean, a lot of people thought Kilmarnock were the favourites for relegation. Obviously, they were the ones that a lot of people were expecting to just go, and that would have been it. But in fairness to them, they've held their own and done exactly what they've needed to do to hold steady in the league. They've played with a pretty good system, 3-5-2. Like I said, it's very common in Scotland, but they do a little bit of a different thing to Livingston, or any team like that. Livingston, Ross County, you can take your pick, but they play with 3, then 5, but usually they'll drop their wingers back to make it a 5 at the back whenever they need to, and it's actually very clever because they've caught out some pretty strong teams with some pretty good results. Include 2-2 draws with Hearts and a 2-1 win against Hearts as well. A 2-1 win against Aberdeen on match day 19, and again, Aberdeen are at the end of a lot of weird results, you'll see. And on match day 33, they beat St Mirren 2-0, and that game arguably was the game that kept them alive because their post-split wasn't exactly great. But hey, well done Kilmarnock. Well done. They have had problems this season, including back-to-back Old Firm losses in the league as well, but of course, that's kind of to be expected. But Derek McInnes has got a pretty good system going, and if he makes the right moves in the course of this summer, they could potentially be quite comfortably in the league next season as well. So, hats off. Coming in at 9th is St Johnstone. 12 wins, 7 draws, and 19 losses, and that adds up to a pretty clean, convincing, safe from relegation 43 points. Now, fun facts, that Johnstone were actually the favourites to go down, based on, obviously, their transfer spending. They didn't really do too much, and they let a couple of players go, but the players that they did keep, and obviously players like Stevie May and Ballantyne, sorry, I couldn't think there, and Paul Worth, they've got a couple of good options that have kind of played crucial roles for them over the course of this season, and they've picked up a couple of really solid wins, and honestly, they've done a pretty solid job. You can't really take away anything that Callum Davidson's been doing. Pretty solid all round. Like I said, here's some of the fixtures. Mixed results, but some of the results I would give them is the 2-1 win on match day 14 against Rangers, and then on match day 12, the 2-1 win against Hibernian. I probably had that in it at second, but the first, which I've given them, is actually a draw, but what a game it was. Match day 37, Ross County versus, St Johnstone. It ended 3-all, a very, very, very enticing game, and again, they've had a couple of good last-minute winners this season as well, so realistically, St Johnstone just need to kind of keep their momentum going and hope that they can try and push to maybe not get top half, but maybe 7th, maybe 6th. Who knows? Fingers crossed for them though. Well done.
Unexpected item in bagging area.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you David Martindale. The GOAT himself, guiding Livingston to an 8th place finish, which admittedly is below where they were predicted. They were predicted to finish 6th. They were predicted to finish in the top half of the table, as they've actually proven to have been capable of doing in recent seasons, but for better or for worse, they just weren't able to do it this time around. In total, their season came out to 13 wins, 7 draws again, and 18 losses, although not too bad. For those that are curious about the points total, I think that's 46. One thing that you can always give a Livingston side is that they're always frustrating to play against, and defensively, that's been the case this season. They've had a few shutouts and they always tend to play frustrate, and like I said, there always seems to be a theme with the 7-draw syndrome, and they seem to have caught that same bug as some of the other teams down below with them, but they actually managed to get a couple of extra wins, like I said, and some good wins like that. But one thing that I can definitely say though is that VAR has stolen a good number of points off of Livingston. I'm not saying it would have been a, season-changing amount, definitely not. However, what I would say is that if they had those points, they maybe could have at least fought it out for, that top 6 spot that they were predicted to finish in. I don't think I need to say the formation. Say it with me now, children. 5-3-2. Well done. Give yourself a pat on the back and a gold star. You absolute dick. Let's run you through some of the stats, shall we? Some of the good games that Livingston have had, and I'll read the list as follows. Match day 12. 1-1 away draw with Rangers, and this was funny. This is a FIFA stat. 19% of the ball, 1 shot on target. Absolute goats. A 3-2 win away to Kilmarnock, which was actually a very, very good game for those that watched it. I did. I had time to actually sit there and watch it on the side, and it was a pretty good game. And again, another Aberdeen slip up somehow. They lost 2-1 on match day 15 away to Livingston this time. Good work, Martindale. GOAT. My GOAT. Give them a round of applause. They do have some really good players as well, if they can keep a hold of them. Players like Noble, Shinnie, Fitzwater, Holt, and Guthrie as well. Actually, he's been pretty good for them this season, and if they can build on that, chances are they can do something next season. Who fucking knows though? They're a weird ass team. Fixture pitch, C-.
We can jump.
Is your mother well? Lucky number 7, as they say. Motherwell were the ones that took 7th spot, and in all honesty, it's a hard one to judge. They were predicted to finish 7th, and that they did. They finished at the end of the season with 50 points, and that will come into play later on, but I'll explain it to you now so it avoids clearance of doubt. When the fixture split happens, which in the SPFL is the match day 33, there's 5 games that the bottom 6 will play each other once and the top 6 will play each other once, and that usually makes the relegation battles more interesting, and the fight for the title more interesting, even though, as you'll see, it was quite straightforward. But Motherwell actually finished with more points than 6th place, and we'll get onto them when we get onto them, but they finished with 50 points, and it's a hard one to gauge. Their best player by a long shot has been Kevin Van Veen, who has been ripping it up in the goal scoring front. In fact, this is the stat that probably will surprise even Motherwell fans. He's responsible for 47% of your league goals. No, 25 goals, sorry, and you scored 53, so you do the maths, it's about 47%. It's quite fucking wild. Their preferred formation's kind of like a 3-4, I would guess 1-2, maybe a 2-1, depending on what they're trying to do on the day, but I would probably say a 1-2, more or less. And the thing is about the way that they play is that they are either really good or insanely shit. It's never really in between. Some other key players include Kelly and Spittle, and to be honest with you, they actually have a really good young core that they can build on. I don't think they're going to be worried about going, towards the lower edges of the table next year, but something catastrophic happening like losing Van Veen, which could be the case. Here's some of their match day fixtures. You can look through them at your own perusement. I'll pause the now so you can do so. Some of their key wins was a 3-2 win against Dundee on match day 38, which for your information was the final day, and that was the one that basically commended Dundee United to their deaths. So well done Motherwell. The only thing I would really suggest is that they just try to stop losing games as frequently as they do, or at least throwing away leads. They've done that a few times this season, but besides that, pretty good season. And that wraps up the bottom half of the table, and obviously you can see there the standings. It was actually pretty close when you consider everything as a whole from top to bottom. There was just 19 points between 7th and 12th, although in the screenshot it's the relegation bracket, but relegation just means the bottom half of the table. But yeah, on to the top half now, after I sleep. Day 2. Woo! Coming in at 6th place with 46 points and a B+ rating is surprisingly I would probably consider them the best of the rest of the ratings. 12 wins, 10 draws and 16 losses. They are definitely the draw specialists of the entire division, and to be fair to them, they've actually played pretty fucking solid football whenever they've actually wanted to. The big stat that I think I should probably begin with is the fact that since match day 8, Celtic didn't lose a game in the league. The team that beat them was St Mirren. Of course, I'm not saying that they were unbeaten for the rest of the season, Celtic, but in games that mattered, until it didn't matter, until the title was wrapped up, St Mirren was the only team to take 3 points away, with a pretty good 2-0 win against us as well, actually, if I'm being honest. It wasn't the only time they surprised us either, actually. They managed to get a draw against us in the post-match splits, but like I said, those games didn't really matter too much to Celtic as it did other teams, but nonetheless, fair play to them. The thing is, Robinson's kind of played with a mix of formations. He's sometimes played with like a 5 at the back, and sometimes he's played with like multitudes of 3. The most common that he plays is kind of like a 3-5-2. Again, very common in Scottish football, but he kind of has like a spin-off formation, I guess, of a 3-4-1, and that's just in case they kind of want to press further up, which again, the way St Mirren plays, they're very counter-attackive, and like I said, they've had multitudes of good results this season, and I'll list off some of them for you now. Like I previously mentioned, the 2-0 win against Celtic, but before that, on match day 4, they actually managed to get a pretty good win against Dundee United. That was a pretty good result for them as well. On match days 18 and 24, they managed to pick up wins against Aberdeen. And on match day 31, the game that I've probably picked to be their best game of the season was the game that probably put them in the top half, and that was the 2-0 win against Hearts. They do have a couple of key players, and I guess if you're taking one from each position in the team, I guess obviously for defence, very easily I would give that to Trevor Corson. He has been insanely good for them between the sticks this season. You go to the midfield, I would give that to Bacchus, because more often than not I've been impressed for what I've seen from him. I'm not a St Mirren fan, admittedly, so I can't speak for how good the rest of them are, but Bacchus is the one that's caught my eye. The one key player, without a doubt, is Curtis Main, who has been, for better or for worse, a pretty good force at times for St Mirren. At the end of the season, he's came in pretty clutch. Like I said, that draw against Celtic, he was pretty much the sole reason that they managed to get that win. He was fantastic. As long as they keep doing the right things, realistically, they could maybe be in the top 6 again next season. It'd be very hard to see it happening, because, like I said, St Mirren just had the luck of the draw when it came to timing, and there were 2 teams below them that actually finished with more points, in case you didn't figure out. In fact, I'm not sure what Livingston finished with. Livingston finished with the same amount of points, but 2 positions lower, so that tells you everything that you need to know about how the split fixtures work in Scotland. But yeah, overall, pretty decent for St Mirren. B+. Well done. 15 wins, 7 draws again, and 16 losses. That was the overall record of Hibernian for them to secure 5th. Overall, it came to around 52 points, and the most painful thing that we can easily say about this for Hibs is that should have things gone a little bit differently, including on the last day, specifically on the last day, they realistically could have finished higher. They could have taken, you know, fourth. They could have got Conference League, but instead fluffed their lines against the 10-man Hearts on the final day, like I said, and just didn't do themselves justice. The other thing that I can say with quite, relaxed confidence is that when you lose more games than you win, you don't really deserve to be in Europe. Well, matchday 3-6, I believe, they only picked up a point, and that point was against Rangers, which shows where the inconsistencies with Hibernian seasons have been, because they've taken points in pretty good games. They've had incredible wins, including a 6-0 win against Aberdeen, and obviously they've picked up, the occasional, like I said, a handful of draws here and there, but more often than not, they tend to lose by 1-goal margins, and it just it just really came back to bite them in the ass, really, and unfortunately they weren't able to win on the final day. Big oof. They did manage to get some good wins, like I said, over the course of the season. They picked up a 4-2 win against Celtic towards the end in the post-splits, and obviously kept their hopes alive on the push for fourth, but didn't really do what they needed to do, so they were 4C. The one thing going for Hibernian is that they do have a pretty good squad, and as long as they build on that, then realistically things should be a little bit easier for them going into next season to maybe push into that kind of area. But the teams that are above them have more than, merited their spots in the table, and we'll go into that. But some of their key players that I would probably include are Bashiri. I would say Stevenson as well, he's been pretty good. Newell, I would add to the list as well, but I was going to add Nisbet, but as of recording this, I found out that Nisbet was sold to Millwall. So,
why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Ladies and gentlemen, the first team with a positive record. 15 wins, 9 draws, 14 losses, and it took fourth. Hearts did pretty good. They finished with a grand spanking total of 54 points, and like I said, that was 2 more of them. 5th place Hibernian, and like I said, it came down to that last match day, so I won't really need to add too much. Boom. There, you've seen it for a second, in case your brain forgot. The one thing that I can immediately say about Hearts that I actually have a lot of respect for is the formation that they play. Obviously, if you've been watching this video up to this point keenly, then you should know the 3-5-2 is kind of the standard in this country, but not for Nielsen. He tends to play with a 4-2-3-1, a very kind of wing-heavy system, but like I said, it's done more than enough, and they've managed to pick up some pretty good wins. I'll list off some of them here. Include a 6-1 win versus County on match day 33, which was quite huge going into the post-split. A 2-1 win against Aberdeen on match day 3, which was pretty good after the split fixtures, so again, huge for their season. Another wacky result for Aberdeen, a 5-0 loss this time, away to home on match day 22, but Hearts were absolutely on fire that game, and it'd be hard to take anything away from them. The other thing that I should quickly mention is that they did actually have the most successful, if you could call it that, European venture out of all of the Scottish clubs. They picked up 6 points in the Conference League, and what people would consider a group of death, 2 wins, both of them against RFS, so realistically not much to add there other than the fact that they did the bare minimum. Held out for a scrappy draw against, obviously, their rivals in the final day to make sure that they were safe. Defensively capable and actually pretty solid more often than not, but the thing is their inconsistencies tend to get the better of them, because they either tend to attack and stay attacking, or defend and stay defending. There is no real middle ground. They'd be a threat for third next season, and realistically, with the start they had to this season, they really could have made a push for third. Maybe should have had it banked if anything, but unfortunately for them, the team in third did a hell of a job. Some of the key players that I would include would probably go along the lines of maybe Cochrane and Ginelli. They've been pretty good for Hearts this season, but their key player undoubtedly has probably been Shankland. I would say 24 goals is a pretty good testament to say how good your job is as a striker, and he's done a pretty good, showing of that. It's a surprise that he's not actually really in the national team as much as he maybe should be with this season. Who knows, maybe we'll see him at the weekend.
Do not send me your dick.
Coming in with 18 wins, 3 draws and 17 losses on 57 points, which happens to be just 1 victory more than what they needed to, go down to 4th, was Aberdeen. Now, the best way to sum Aberdeen up is that it was a tale of two halves through most of their football matches, but also just the season in general. You might have recalled back at the start when I was talking about Dundee United and Jim Goodwin, or as I'll henceforth christen him, Jimothy Badloss, because this motherfucker has bluffed his way through two jobs this season and bottled them both, and it started at Aberdeen. Now, the first half of the season, if you couldn't tell by the amount of times I've mentioned Aberdeen previously, they've been on the end of some pretty horrifically bad results. They started off the season with back defeats to Motherwell. They managed to lose to a team from, I think, the 7th or 8th tier called Darvel, or Darvel. That's how little I know about it. They lost 1-0 to a literal bunch of part-timers. That tells you just how bad Goodwin's tactics were working. Things did eventually turn around though when they decided to depart with Goodwin after a pretty horrific loss to Hibernian. Again, I mentioned that the 6-0 defeat, that was the one that basically killed Goodwin's career dead, and he moved to Dundee, and you've seen what happened to them. But after a bit of a rocky start, Barry Robson actually managed to get them under pretty good stead, and their actual best run of form during the course of the season came at arguably the most crucial time, with the last 5 match days before the split. They needed to basically win all 5 games to secure any chance of fighting it out for not just third at that point, but Europe in general. But 5 wins basically on the bounce heading into said split made sure that they were the ones to beat. And 1 extra win in the post-split, which was, easy enough for them to do, was enough to basically give them enough space between them and Hearts to slot themselves into Europa League football if they can get through the playoffs. For those that are curious, it was a 3-0 win against St Mirren that secured their victory, and let's be real, probably the easiest team that you can do it against, and that was the easiest team that was left in the post-split, although I can't talk shit, I'm a Celtic fan, we drew with them. Overall, I think the consensus of the Aberdeen fans and probably just the media in general is that it was a pretty solid end to a season after a pretty admittedly abhorrent start. Robson was a smart appointment, got all the tactics right, so fair play to them. Some of their better wins include 5-0 and 4-1 wins against Livingston and Kelly respectively, and some pretty crucial, like I said, late match day wins, including 3-0 win against Hearts on match day 29 and a 2-0 win against Rangers on match day 33. Some of their better players this season I would probably argue is more in their attacking front. I would probably give it to Duke or Miovski. They've been two of the more fun striking options to work, but they do have players in Basusian and others that they could probably use. Going down the lines, good old guards as well, and players like Johnny Hayes, who I have a lot of love and respect for, but do I see them finishing third next season? It's very much up in the air. If Robson manages to, put together more winning runs like he did, on the lead to the split fixtures, then yeah, 100% they could potentially be doing way more comfortable things this time round.
I live in Smethwick, Birmingham. If you want the fucking brawl, come down Smethwick Hospitality. I'll come out of my house and I'll break your fucking...
Now this is where you're going to see some pretty major discrepancies in how the top 2 teams in Glasgow battle it out compared to the rest of the league. Now, before I get here, I'll just read out their stats. Now, you remember Aberdeen came in with, not many wins, 18 wins. Rangers finished second with 29. With that came 5 draws and 4 losses, and the unfortunate thing for Rangers was that most of those losses came at the hands of, breakdown for Rangers' season is kind of simple when you break it down. They didn't have a great start at all. They did okay to get through the qualifiers against PSV in the Champions League playoff path, but once they got there, they were the worst team in European history in the Champions League. 6 straight losses and only 2 goals in those entire 6 fixtures, with 22 goals against, means that their minus 20 goal difference made them by far the worst defence to ever partake in, history. But after they parted ways with Van Bronckhorst and obviously the World Cup rolled out, Michael Beale came in in fairness to him, he's made 1 or 2 pretty smart signings in Catwell and Raskin, who I would say have been 2 of their better players in the second half of the season, and they've had some of their old guard basically doing what they've needed to do, and obviously Tavernier and I'd argue Goldson as well. McGregor, who obviously has departed, and I'll get on to their transfer departures in a second, but McGregor has also been very good for them this season. However, they have gone trophyless, and it's not been a comfortable season at all. They were behind basically since January after the 2-2 draw in the Old Firm against Celtic, which was the last time that they really put a threat towards Celtic for the rest of the season, because after that Celtic refused to lose basically until the post splits, where, like I said, they weren't really focused on winning a lot because, as you'll see, they were quite comfortable by that point. Losing some pretty key players, obviously Tillman going back on loan if they decide to pull the trigger and buy him full time is up in the air for debate, but they've also lost players like Kent and Arfield and obviously Morelos, and I know that the opinion on those players are kind of up in the air between the fan bases, but realistically they were quite good players, but they've just walked for nothing, no transfer fees or anything like that. So basically what it's meaning is that Rangers need to qualify for the Champions League this time round, which is going to be another difficult playoff path route because, like I said, they didn't finish first. The most surprising stat I can bring up is a stat that, I mean, a lot of people have probably brought up, and this isn't a dig at Rangers, it's more of a respect to how good their defence has been at times, although admittedly they should have had a few called against them. But they're the only team this season in practically the entirety of Europe that hasn't conceded a penalty in a league match, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. They had some pretty good wins in the season, to be fair to them. Like I said, the 3-0 win, the last Old Firm derby of the season, might have been a whitewash for the boys in, green and white, but the boys in blue had pride to play for, and in fairness to them, they managed to get something in that game. There was also the 4-0 win against Hearts away in match day, I think 9, if my brain can recall. And another one I would say, which was probably, I would say, their game of the season, was the 3-2 away win against Aberdeen with a late goal to basically keep their seasons alive. And they also did that in the Cup as well, in the semi-finals of the Scottish Cup, I believe, or I think it was the Scottish Cup, I'm not too sure, or I think it was the Viaplay Cup, if my brain right. Yeah, Viaplay Cup semi-final. They scored a last-minute winner through Kamal Roof to basically guarantee themselves a spot in the final against their Old Firm rivals, but once again, they fell short. In the 6 Old Firm derbies, they lost 4, won 1, and drew the other. So, make of that what you will. The only thing working in their favour, like I said, is that they have brought in a new manager, and there's a lot of things that they'll probably try and do over the summer window to make sure things work out a little bit smoother for them. But the chances are that they're going to have to obviously have a lot of output to do that. They have already brought in a couple of signings as it stands. They've signed Jack Butland. I know that has been confirmed. I know they're looking at 1 or 2 other people, but again, I haven't really been looking into that side of things. I've been more focused on my own club. But one thing I will say is that if Rangers do get their act together, it could make next season a hell of a lot more tense than what that season was. But unfortunately, that wasn't really the case. So, unlucky Rangers fans. Maybe next time. And coming in at first place, are you surprised? Are you shocked? Are you even slightly suspicious? No, you are fucking not. Celtic. Let's 99 points come the end of the season, 1 point short of the century mark, although again that only comes down to how bad the post splits were. Everything before that point was nothing short of picture perfect, bar a slip up on match day 8, which we discussed, that loss away to St Mirren, which was basically the only slight bump in the road. Everything else besides that was pretty good. The only major discredit I can really say about Celtic's season has been in the Champions League, because very much like Rangers, there was a lot of expectation for what we were bringing. We didn't play bad in the Champions League. We had a pretty attractive style. We weren't depressing to watch like our Old Firm rivals were, but we weren't exactly great. We lost 4 games, drew 2, and in fairness, yeah, Real Madrid's in that group. You're not really going to maybe win those games, but Red Bull Leipzig, bar a heart mistake, we could have gotten a point, maybe a win out of that game, because of how bad our confidence got rocked, and certainly in the Shakhtar games we could have won them both, so it could have been a much different season for us, but unfortunately, 2 points. The only other major thing to discredit as well is, like I said, their post-split run. They had 2 wins, they had 2 losses and a draw, which was the only real 5-match league span where it wasn't complete dominance. If you go through any of the other league's fixtures, I'll put some up as I'm speaking, most of them are wins. And again, the win record, it's incredible. 32 wins, 3 draws and 3 losses, meaning that up until that split, there was only 2 draws and a loss. That's it. Up until the title was basically won. That is incredible. A lot of the positives about Celtics play came through the manager, and I'll get onto that in a second, but it's provided some of the more incredible parts of play and how we've done things this season with how we press, the attacking style, and that 4-3-3 that we play is just some of the players that I can immediately call off the top of my head that we couldn't really live without this season have been quite straightforward, and obviously Kyogo, Jota, you can call O'Reilly, McGregor, Hatate, go to the back, Carter Vickers, and I'd probably say Carter Vickers we've realised has been way more important than we first thought, because after he got injured, that's when Celtic's form started to slightly, trail off its path a little bit. Good wins away from home. Obviously, they had a 4-3 win against Hearts, which I would probably call the game of the season if you're talking about high-end drama. It was an incredible match. Hearts threw everything at us, but somehow, some way, Celtic managed to stick it out and get out of that game with a pretty, comfortable, in the end, surprisingly, 4-3 win. But what a match it was if you were watching it live. The biggest win of the season came at the hands of Celtic as well, because at 114 goals we scored this season in 38 matches, that's just insane. Was hugely down to the 9-0 win against Dundee. We had a couple of other big wins as well, obviously, the 5-1 wins against St Mirren. We had a couple of those, a fair few of those, a couple of 4-1 wins against teams like St Johnstone and stuff like that too. The match day 11-6-1 victory against Hibs stands out to me as well, because coincidentally, for those that don't know, that was the first game I streamed. That's where my career started, so I have a little bit of a soft spot for that match in my heart. And obviously I would probably throw the League Cup final against Rangers in there as well, just because it stopped them from winning their only real chance at piece of silverware. It was quite funny. We also wrapped up an historic treble, 8th in our club's history, and it was an incredible thing to watch live. Like I said, for those that don't know, I stream, so most match days I cover on this channel. You can go back through my channel and you'll see a whole bunch of VODs. This isn't the type of stuff I usually do, so I'll take a little second. If you like this, please, again, subscribe, like, all that good jazz, because this has taken me literal days to make, and I'm still going. Yeah, a 3-1 win against Inverness at Hampden basically secured us a pretty incredible piece of history. 3 trophies, you can't really complain at that. The perfect sweep, as you can call it. Another video that I've put up on this channel in the last week or so. Ange Postecoglou, our manager, has left, which puts a lot of doubt into what happens going forward, because yes, we have a very good squad, but it's how the new manager comes in and implements that, because the chances are they'll bring in a couple of new things that will, tweak the system that we play. And right now, like I said, the favourite's Brendan Rodgers, and who knows at this point. This isn't, part of the season review, it's just whatever. But yeah, I think we were probably the second team in the league that got the worst end of VAR decisions after Livingston, I would probably argue. We've had a couple of dodgy calls. I mean, the Goldson handball is probably the most iconic one of the season. If you just want a bit of context, just go and watch the 2-2 draw, because like I said, Rangers technically should have lost that game too, but again, we moved, didn't matter in the end. It was quite comfortable. The match day was wrapped up with a 2-0 away win against Hearts on match day 34, so we basically had the rest of the post-split to sit back and relax and just try out new things to prepare for the cup final against Inverness. So yeah, we had 3-0 losses against Rangers and a slip up against St Mirren and a loss to Hibernian, but that was really about the extent of how bad it got for us. Everything else was quite pitch perfect, honestly. Couldn't be happier. So that's it. And that concludes all of the, analysis. So to recap all of the rankings, in case you were curious or you missed any of them, in 12th place, I put Dundee, F-. 11th place, Ross County, got a D-. Kelly in 10th, got a C+. St Johnstone in 9th, got a D+. Livingston in 8th with a C-, followed by Motherwell in 7th with a B-. Coming into the top half of the table in 6th place is St Mirren, who got a B+. In 5th and 4th were the Edinburgh teams, with Hibs racking up a C and Hearts racking up a B-. 3rd place, taking the bronze medal, was Aberdeen, and they managed to scrape themselves a pretty respectable B- as well. Rangers taking 2nd, and I've given them a C. And of course, the top dogs and top of the table, whatever you want to call them, Celtic, with a rating of an A. So here's a final look at the league standings. This is how the table ended, and you can notice the gap between first, second, and then all the way down to third. Hopefully it's a lot more tense next season, but who knows at this point. It's a very curious summer transfer window coming up, and obviously with things changing both at Rangers and at Celtic as well, maybe something gets thrown into the works, who knows. But if you've watched this far, thank you very much for doing so. This is taking a hell of a lot of time and effort to make, so if you've stuck around to this point, it means you've appreciated the effort, so thank you very much. If you would like to join me on the weekend streams, because like I said, I do a lot of streams as well, I'll be doing the Scotland games on the 17th and the 20th against Norway and Georgia respectively, so if you'd like to come and join me for, you know, a live watch along of that, you're more than welcome to do so. But if you've liked this video content, you can subscribe and stick around for that as well, because my plan is to try and get a video out every 2 weeks or so if, you know, my brain cells can manage it, because this took a hell of a lot out of me to do, I'll be real. But yeah, that wraps everything up. Thank you once again for watching. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'm on my road to 1,000 subscribers, so any piece of help is hugely appreciated. You can like this video and you can share it if you know, want to give a little bit of extra support. You can also leave your comments on extra stuff that you would like to see me do in the future. Obviously Celtic's my main thing, but I like doing the Scottish League stuff as well, so again, any, you know, topics or suggestions I'll take into consideration and do. But I've been Caucasian, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.